Hello and welcome to Virtualization and Cloud Computing. Cloud computing. Let's have a discussion about cloud computing. What is cloud computing? What does that term really mean? When people think of the cloud, they may think of a hosted computer or server that you can access remotely, or some type of service that's in the cloud in this far off data center with unlimited resources and it'll never go down. And partly they're correct. But you as a IT technician, we want to talk about all the opportunities and the benefits and all the characteristics of cloud computing and give you a definition so you can understand everything that cloud computing has to offer. So that answer is partly true, but there's so much more to that. In fact, there are many important characteristics and benefits and capabilities that you need to be aware of. So, in its simplest terms, cloud computing means storing and accessing data and programs and applications over the internet instead of your computer's hard drive. That's cloud computing in its simplest terms. But of course, there's a lot more to it than that. So rather than owning their own computing infrastructure or data centers, companies can get access to anything from applications to storage from a cloud service provider. There are so many capabilities with cloud computing. So, for a moment, let's take a moment and let's imagine that you are the IT director of an organization. This is a startup company, and that company needs an infrastructure right away because they're just getting into business and they want to get started right away. And it's your responsibility to roll out this infrastructure. So, in order of doing that, the right way would to begin developing the company's products and hardware and so forth. But you can look at a cloud model. I know what would be the easiest way to get that organization going. Um, they need to hurry up and get that product to market, and you need a way to get this entire infrastructure spun up very quickly. So you would look at a cloud model. That would be a faster route to go instead of building out a traditional data center. So, same scenario. Let's look at this again. If you are IT director of a startup company, and this company needs a new payroll system right away that all members of the accounting department need access to. Now, the employees in this department, they all do not work in that physical office, but some are work from home and some are even not in the same state, but across the country. So, in this cloud model, this could be provisioned as a software and a service solution. So, this is where you would look for a software and service for that payroll system. So, last example, again, you're the IT director of an organization, a startup company, and you have a product that needs to get developed. You have a team of developers working across the country, and they need a platform they can work in. So again, instead of building out your infrastructure and getting them remote access to this application within your four walls, you can look at a cloud solution here. So those are just some of the examples that as an IT director or as a company perspective that cloud computing can come in handy. Scalable and flexible. So let's look at some of the cloud characteristics. Some of those examples that we just talked about falls in some of these characteristics. So shared resources. So basically, in a cloud model, you will have resources that are shared. So, say for instance, like in a traditional web hosting situation, that platform is shared with other companies. You procure or purchase your slice of that particular cloud, and you can host your information, your data, or your hardware there, but it's shared with other resources. So it is a shared resource. And also metered utilization. What does that mean? So if you think about it, you are buying time for this cloud application or device or infrastructure. It's almost like a meter on a cab. When you use it, you're paying for what you use. So if you're not using it, you don't pay for that. So it's a metered utilization. How much of that you use is how much you pay. So it's a pay as you go model, which makes it very flexible and convenient for a lot of organizations. Again, this is a cost savings here because some organizations may not have the infrastructure or the capital to build out a data center where they can look at a cloud model and just pay as you go. Rapid elasticity. That's another characteristic. Now, we were just talking about in our examples of you being an IT director and you needed to ramp up real quickly with a team of developers. As the project grew, you needed to add more developers. Traditionally, you would have to buy more hardware and more bandwidth to house and handle all those incoming connections. But with the cloud, it grow as you grow. So it's a rapid elasticity and it can happen instantaneously depending on the plan that you have with that provider. High availability is another cloud characteristics. What does that mean? Okay, so if I'm working in a traditional four walls and there's a power outage, I'm going to have to go home for the day. I can't work. With high availability in a cloud model, wherever you have an internet connection, you can work from. If their building goes down and your application and your products are in the cloud, you can go down to the local Starbucks or McDonald's or work from home because you can access that information from anywhere. And finally, file synchronization. What does that mean? That means if you're working on an application, that file is automatically or synced immediately as you're working on it. So no matter where you are working or who's working on it, those files are synced all the time. So cloud models. Let's talk about cloud models. So we talked about a lot of information, but let's talk about specific models where we may have different scenarios for different type of clouds. A private cloud is a cloud where if you had a cloud infrastructure within your organization that your organization uses, that would be a company owned or local data center type private cloud. It's only for your organization. You may have people of your organization that's not physically within those four walls access it, but it's private to your organization. Public cloud. A public cloud would be a general provider that has publicly available services that they rent out to for a particular dollar amount. So if you had company A, company B, and they're customers of web hosting company XYZ, that's a public cloud. You can also have a hybrid cloud where some of your applications could be in the public cloud and some of your applications be in the private cloud. As you're working and building your applications, there's a portion of it that needs to reach out to the public cloud, where the majority of it may be inside in house or in your private cloud. And there's also a model called a community cloud. A community cloud would be an organization or several organizations that come together that's want to pool their resources together instead of building out a infrastructure, one company manning the whole load or shouldering the whole load for that. They may share the cost together and between them build a cloud that they all can use. So, types of cloud services, we've covered a lot of information and we're digging down more. Now we're going to talk about types of cloud services. And as we go over these definitions, you'll see that we've been talking about those. Now we're putting a name to them. The first one will be infrastructure as a service, which is IaaS. You manage everything except the hardware. Again, you as the IT director, you need an infrastructure immediately. This is the type of service that you would need or cloud service you would need will be an infrastructure as a service. And we'll talk a little bit more neat in detail in the next following slides. The next one would be software as a service or a SaaS or a SaaS. You just manage the data that you input. The application is there in the cloud. You log in, you have a control or management panel, and you just plug in your data. Again, we'll see examples of this. Some examples could you can think about an email, hosted email platform along those lines. Platform as a service or PaaS. This is the platform where you're developing in the cloud. There may be different components and pieces that you put together to build a application, but this is again partially hosted, but you're in charge of arranging the components. So let's talk about these individually. So again, with the infrastructure as a service, you're talking about like a hosted web server, a hosted database server, something like that. Only the data is yours. You manage the data. Everything else is managed by the provider, and this is also known as hardware as a service. Software as a service, again, the SaaS is a hosted software solution. That application is completely in the cloud, and you're just putting your data into that, your information. It could be like a Microsoft 365 or a Google Mail or an accounting or payroll system that's online. You're using that application and it's online. And a platform as a service, like we said before. The platform is provided, but you put the necessary pieces and components together and develop that product or that application. Salesforce is a good example of this. The AWS platform where you can build other softwares and put your pieces together. Microsoft Azure is an example of this. You bring the data and you develop that in the cloud that's provided to you. So let's look at it this way. And will give you another look at all the models that we talked about. So as you look at this image, you'll see on the left hand side, it's a lot of blue there. And on the right hand side, it's a lot of gray. Now, this is kind of, again, will give you a good visual of the different models that we just spoke about. Starting from the left, we're going to move over to the right. In the blue is what you manage, and in the gray is what the provider manage. So again, starting on the far left, you manage like a traditional IT setup or a traditional data center. If that needed to be rolled out, you handle everything: the applications, you put the data, the runtimes, the middleware, operating system, everything. You handle everything. Infrastructure as a service is the infrastructure, which is gray, is already provided to you. You're just responsible for the applications, the data, runtime, and middleware. And as you move over to the right, you'll see you have the less you have to do. Platform as a service, again, everything is provided to you in gray. Applications and data is the only thing you're responsible for. Software as a service, everything is provided. The only thing you do is you put in your information. Again, everything is provided for you. Desktop virtualization, or also known as desktop as a service. There are times, and companies may even um, put their desktops in the cloud. You can use a virtual desktop infrastructure or a VDI either on premises or in cloud. It's almost like a remote desktop connection where you connect to a desktop other than the computer that you're using for different applications or even to work on. A lot of organizations set up where they have desktops in the cloud that they could work remotely at a separate desktop location. A desktop virtualization, again, is low resources, impact on the client, but there is a heavy demand for this. So again, this is a virtual desktop scenario. All right, a lot of great information about cloud computing. We talked about common cloud models. We talked about cloud characteristics and desktop virtualization. So we got a great start in our cloud virtualization and our virtualization infrastructure. So that's it for this lesson. I will see you in the next lesson.